Hello, distinguished social work colleagues in the Philippines. My name is Seokpyo Kim, a Korean social worker. First of all, I would like to thank PASWE for hosting me today as one of the resource persons and giving me the opportunity to share with my thought with the Filipino social workers on the roles and contributions of international, regional, and national social work installations in promoting social development, as you can see on the slide. I'm currently a representative of International Federation of Social Workers, Asia Pacific region to United Nations, and also Vice President of Korea Association of Social Workers, and current President of Daegu Association of Social Workers. The picture on the slide is a photo when I participated in the UN ESCAP in May this year. In this session, I'm going to evaluate our roles and contribution as a social workers at the international level, the regional level, and the national level, respectively. In explaining the role of international social work, it is essential to highlight the United Nations agenda and the IFSW's themes. So first, let me explain the UN agenda. The picture is the emblem of the United Nations. When dealing with the role of social welfare from a global perspective, we have no choice but to deal with the role of United Nations. The reason is that the United Nations and social welfare practice have similar goals and objectives. The UN agenda mainly focuses on these things listed below. First is the Sustainable Development Goals. Subsequently, other goals from number 2 through number 5 as seen on the slide are one part making a simple sentence about our class schedule today. 17 SDGs, but I would like to talk more deeply and share my thought on these with you in this presentation because I want to emphasize more on these issues. The contents are poverty issues. This includes, but not limited to, the urban improvement issues and poor issues of rural area as well, and the problem of hunger due to poverty. The third is issue of refugees. Fortunately, the Philippines is not suffering from refugee issues, but refugee issues around the world and Southeast Asia are becoming another emerging issue in the Asia Pacific region. It's a matter of conflict caused by war and reconstruction after war, and deportation of migrant workers. Let's go back to the first UN agenda. This is a picture that you have probably seen a lot. Each country has learned that the world is no longer sustainable due to reckless development of economic growth and the abuse of fossil materials. So, the United Nations focuses on the world's sustainable development. Hence, on the international standpoint, the UN is committed to partner with all stakeholders, including the social workforce, in order to achieve sustainable development. This SDG has 17 goals and 195 detailed target indicators. If you look at what's included here, it sets a wide range of goals, from social welfare to the economic and the environmental development. The problem of poverty, refugees, war, and reconstruction and migrant workers mentioned earlier are mainly topics that social workers must observe closely. It is also a natural indication that the role of social workers becomes more important in order to achieve the broad goals of the United Nations. The International Federation of Social Workers is an organization that can further refine, support, and implement the UN agenda. Therefore, there is an inseparable relationship with the UN. This year's IFSW slogan makes it easier to understand. IFSW aims to co-building new eco-social world, leaving no one behind. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres always emphasized this proposition. The paramount goal is to change the world in which rich countries live better and the poor countries become poorer. This topic, in line with the Ubuntu spirit, which IFSW put forward as a slogan in 2021. I am because we are. No matter how careful I am, COVID-19 was influenced by others, and even if our country is a clean country, it occurred in other countries and caused us to be surrounded by fears of unknown crises and threats from the pandemic. Furthermore, I think the goals of the United Nations are the precise spirit of time that is raiding this era. In order to solve these problems, we must trust each other and increase the importance of interpersonal human relationships. Also, to positively impact social workers in other countries. Let's try as much as possible to make effort to improve our country's social work service. It is necessary to promote human relations among our social workers and recognize the importance of human relations. Looking at the major agenda of social workers around the world for the next 10 years, it can give us clues about what we should do with international laws. First of all, we need to recognize valuing social work as essential service. In the midst of rapid dynamic global circumstances, we should strive for co-building intensive social transformation. Next is transforming social protection systems. As we went through the corona pandemic, we felt that we need to change the way we care for the clients. The world is becoming more and more digitalized, and clients demand speedy response and accuracies from our social work service. In particular, there is something that people like scholars and professors who study social work on macro level should come up with more research results and approaches. In this slide, promoting diversity and power of joint social action has the similar meaning as solidarity that we have always emphasized. Various tribes, various ethnic groups, and various organizations should unite as one. In order to be solidarity, we will start by recognizing the diversity that each person has. The 4 themes mentioned above will be introduced at the end of my lecture to emphasize that they should eventually be based on Ubuntu spirit. I am because we are. There is South Korea because there is the Philippines. The Philippines used to be a great help to Korea. Thanks for that help. Today, Korea should be a country that also render help to other countries, just as Filipino social workers did to Koreans. We should acknowledge and complement each other. The developed countries cannot boast of their achievement without recognizing the importance of the developing countries. This Ubuntu spirit is a spirit that anyone who does social work should keep in mind. Now, I'm going to share with you my thought on what our roles and contributions will be in the regional social work. The IFSW is divided into 5 regions: European region, African region, North American region, South America and Caribbean region, and the SF Pacific region that we belong to. As you can see, the SF Pacific region is made up of these countries. The Asia Pacific region is the largest region among 5 regions, from Papua New Guinea to the east to Israel to the west. A total of 18 countries are organized, but there are some countries that have not yet to organize their social welfare associations. As a member of Asia Pacific region, it is our responsibility not to turn a blind eye to the difficulties of other countries in the region. In this slide, I'd like to introduce some of the problems that the countries in our region are experiencing recently. Before explaining the role of regional social work, let's take a look at an example of regional social work practices in Europe. Then we will try to apply this to our region. As you all know, Ukraine is at war with Russia. The cause of war and political issues are not something we will deal with. However, it is the role of social workers to look at the dysfunctional horrors that arise from the war and help out effectively. Social workers should defend those who suffer from the invasion of war. Some countries in the Asia Pacific region face similar difficulties, such as Afghanistan, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and many more. Global social workers are supporting the war-torn Ukrainian people by posting the slide like this on their social media. This slide is a picture of the IFSW European region setting up a refugee camp to help Ukrainian refugees. The person you see in the picture is the president of European region. In addition to collecting resources and sending welfare to help Ukrainian refugees, they also recruited volunteers from various European countries to help set up refugee camps. They don't only support hardware such as setting up camps. They also provide a counseling service to take care of the children. With the help of volunteers, they are supported with the desks and mats there to provide counseling service to help heal children with post-war trauma. So let's take a look at the problem of Asia Pacific region countries. First, it is about the refugees suffering from Myanmar's military coup, dictatorship. There used to be global interest in Myanmar, but when the Ukrainian war broke out, Myanmar lost this global interest. Hence, the difficulty of life of Myanmar refugees is getting worse. In order to help these people, Daegu Association of Social Workers, which I belong to, campaigned for fundraising with the donation raised. They helped feed, providing drinking water, and buy living camp tent for Myanmar refugees. There are still many refugee camps in Myanmar to further support. Some of the shortfalls of getting these donations across the refugee is that the military government controls banks and the financial institutions. So these donations are being supported and sent through secret routes. The Daegu Association of Social Workers have provided funds and supported Myanmar refugee families living in various camps 3 times. I am privileged to have been part of key persons that helped and supported over 161 families living in refugee camps in Myanmar for 3 months with rice and cooking oil. This slide is an article calling for the release and support of a statement to help Sri Lanka in the Asia Pacific region. We are demonstrating our effort to help Sri Lanka at the regional level. Now, let's look at the roles and contributions of domestic social welfare for social workers. Here, I would like to introduce some cases of South Korea to you. Two things that Korean social workers are doing among various other domestic activities are, first, enhancing the political power of social workers. The second is legislative activities to strengthen the benefits of social workers. I will call it legislation for social work and development. The four people you see are candidates for the presidential election held in March this year. This is an example of maximum political influence of presidential candidates from four political parties to visit the Association of Social Workers and show commitment to welfare state. Regardless of which party's candidate is elected president, after becoming president, we exert political influence on them to realize the benefits of social workers and the welfare state. The person who signs the above is the current president of the Republic of Korea. What he promised was to improve the benefits and treatment of social workers. The Korean social workers will continue to exert political influence on him in order to keep this promise. Next is legislation on social welfare through the National Assembly. I'm sorry to use a Korean picture that you can understand as a slide, but I'll try to explicitly explain this to enable you to understand perfectly. This content was legislated by lawmakers through National Assembly. The content is a legislation that will establish a committee to improve the treatment of social workers and to systematically check and raise how much treatment has improved every year. Since such legislation was enacted, the government can no longer turn a blind eye to the treatment of social workers. What this legislation includes is a great significance that it has changed from improving treatment at the benefiting level to improving treatment as a fundamental right. This is the conclusion of today's presentation. Kindly use social work promotion with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. This is because most of what happens in our field is connected to the UN agenda. Second, the IFSW's sharing of the agenda with the United Nations is important in terms of human rights, not simply because of globalization. Third, it is a crucial issue to remember that peace-building strategy is important in Asia-Pacific region because many countries in Asia-Pacific are suffering from war and political conflict. Finally, social workers in the Philippines, especially PASUI, need capacity building through political power in PASUI. Furthermore, it is the responsibility of social workers to change the world, and the effect of these desired changes can be achieved when we work together, being bound by love and unity. Together as one, we can make the world a better place. Lastly, I implore you to become social workers in PASUI who takes responsibility in action to effort desired changes in your country and beyond. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much.